Dance of the Persecuted. That's your latest book. Nora, it's dealing about Oriental dance made in Cairo. The public is calling it the ballet dance. So what's so wrong with the name ballet dance?
Well, first of all, for me, it is not the public calling it ballet dance, but more the Western audience. In different places, it has different names. And for me, I prefer to explain the other names as an alternative, because I have a little bit trouble in calling dances according to body parts. And I like to think of dance more as a holistic thing, not belonging to specific body parts. But anyway, when I was struggling with the word belly dance, I started also researching to understand about the development of the dance itself, and that at a certain point there was a lot of belly work. This is totally correct. But this was in a very, very early stage. There was a lot of development afterwards. And in the development, the name kept also changing and transforming. So I somehow feel that sticking to the word belly is sticking to one gaze towards the dance that is belonging to a very old time somehow.
So how old is the dance, basically?
Oh, well, we can say forever. We can say maybe even since ancient Egypt, you know. There is no real specific documentation about it. Some people would say like maybe since 1400, maybe a bit later, 500 years ago. Some people would also call Salome dance like one form of it. I'm trying to limit my narrative to the Ottoman Empire, to the start of the shaming of the belly dance from the Ottoman Empire. So this is where I start.
Okay.
Of course,
your book.
Yeah. Much older, definitely.
Yeah. By the way, you are a practitioner as well. So you're dancing Raqs Baladi, as you call it, officially.
I started very late with this, Originally, I did all Western forms of dance, ballet, modern, jazz, and I've been working with contemporary dance for a long time. And I arrived to this form very late. And as part of my research on trauma and understanding dance from a feminist perspective. So this is what brought me to Raqs Sharqi or to baladi dance. Although it made sense from the beginning, but it was impossible to deal with it because, again, of colonial reasons and shaming reasons. So now when I reach a little bit of liberation in my career path, I start dealing with it.
Yeah. So as far as I understand, especially you were saying, you call it basically Raqs Baladi in your book, Dance of the Persecuted. And it means literally the dance of my country. So it's a kind of patriotic word, I would say. But I understood, I learned from your book, that this is not founded by Egyptian people, but by Roma.
Just to say again about the word baladi, because it's an Egyptian word, Arabic Egyptian. It is not so patriotic like Watani, for instance. Watani is more dealing with high mat from a patriotic point of view. And baladi means more like my land, my country. And it is also a word that, according to the classist system, you know, the system of social class and elitism and stuff, sometimes it's referring to folk culture also. When we say baladi dance, it means that it's anybody's country dance. So you can say baladi, it becomes your own country dance.
So folk dancing, yeah, basically, yes.
But in my research, yes, I link it to, of course, to the Roma history in Egypt. And I'm very, very interested in this angle because it it explains partly the hybridity of the vocabulary and of the technique of the dance, which is totally transcultural. And it has components from Indian dance, from Persian dance. So it's a hybrid dance. But with the migration of the Roma community into Egypt, my own interpretation is that they are originally performers. Yes, and this is also part of their business and creating income and professionalism, but also because of the existence of spectatorship, because it's not a business you can do on your own. You have to have a spectatorship. The spectatorship becomes the community, and it gradually creates the sense of belonging while dancing. And from there, I try to interpret how this baladi, my dance, my own country's dance, is rooted in the body as a country also. And as a way to appropriate your identity and the space you are in. For me, it is also interesting, this perspective, because it connects very well to the colonial history of Egypt. And for me, the history of coloniality and patriarchy are very much connected, and the female dancing body is one area when we can see this interweaving between all those powers, and specifically with the bodies of migrant dancers, especially when they are outdoor in the public sphere. So for me, it was a way also to look at how a political decree made by the ruling authority, Muhammad Ali Pasha, is looking at the bodies of migrant women, not just women, they are migrants, so they are infiltrating the morality of the Egyptian society. And how this image keeps expanding and extending until now, so that the female body becomes a direct threat to the masculine ruler, but also to what is so-called morality of the society.
Especially in a society which is led by either Christian or Islamic moralities. So both religions are not really fan of dancing.
Especially if it has a kind of sexuality that is open and free. I feel our societies have tendencies to contain the sexuality in dancing or to categorize it. So maybe you would say, okay, those women can do this dance, but not our mothers, not our daughters. Yeah, so.
You said it's a very hybrid dance with a lot of roots from a different, and it changed a lot, especially in the 19th century when it arrived at so-called cabarets in Cairo. And I know it a little bit because I went there once or twice in my life. These are huge halls with very professional entertainment program, and I like this chapter especially in your book when you describe how these cabarets were erected in the 19th century under British occupancy. Can you tell me a little bit about how it became such a globalized phenomenon? Because at least we have to keep in mind that that's what we used to call ballet dance, aka baladi, is danced by women in the US, in South America, in Europe, of course. So it became a real global phenomenon. But it all started in the 19th century, isn't it?
Yes, and throughout the beginning of the 20th century. in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and I feel the 20th century is the real turning point for this practice and how it grows into a commercial business. So originally it was like before the beginning of the 20th century, it was more of a community dance. Even if it was practiced by some families in the circus, in the tents of the celebrations or whatever, it was still not institutionalized. And it was not part of the recognized capitalist notion of entertainment business. And then with the rise of the idea of teatro, theaters, stage, all those community and let's say traditional forms of expression, they became institutionalized and put into a format of business. For me, there is a good part where you can also see how there is a lot of women who helped to create this business, the theater and the movies as an industry, and how at this moment the bodies of women are becoming something iconic for celebration, for the sexuality is still not so much shamed as well, but you can recognize them as pioneers and creators of business. And then later we have different political shifts in Egypt and political shifts of economic ideologies. And of course, when we arrive to an era when the capitalist system is becoming very, very cruel and the religious fundamentalism is rising on the other side, the space for the practice becomes very much limited. And I feel it also changes the performance, the relation to the spectators, and the understanding of what a cabaret is. So originally it was understood as a space for performance, for art. There is also drinking, there is, you know, getting to know each other, the social practice, but later the cabaret becomes more like a brothel, I mean, in this collective understanding that it is absolutely a shamed place to go to. Now, I feel that this also changed the body of the dancer into an objectified sexual target. And this is how I try to explain how the technique of the dance changed and how moving specific parts of the bodies changed. But in parallel to that, there is also a lot of opening, you know, between Egypt and the USA, and gradually also with the tourists from the Arab region, belly dance is becoming one winning card for selling Egyptian culture. And this is how it starts expanding, traveling to Europe and the USA in the form of workshops, I feel, that are partly labeled like exoticizing this form of dance. It's like exotic. And also the sexuality is framed as, you know, how you can seduce. Because there is this whole line of thinking that this is a dance of seduction. And we will teach you how to become seducers if you. For me, this is, I mean, it's a whole area of criticism. I feel until now there are some dancers who do work in nightclubs who are trying to preserve the personality of the dancer as a dignified artist who is not there to seduce. But on the other hand, there is big trends of really objectifying and sexualizing this dance and importing a lot of foreign dancers to again use the racist gaze, but this time in a reversed way. And I'm totally against this. So I just try to answer your question.
Honestly, I have to, but honestly, I have to interrupt you a little bit, just because my experience of seeing quite a couple of shows in Cairo, I always had the strong impression that this is the show by strong women. So it's not seductive in the sense of please do with me what you want, but he's representing, what they are representing themselves as very strong women on the one hand. And I was more shocked at least about the picture which was created by Hollywood, the whole film industry later, which at least made this better find this seductiveness you are talking about much more framed in the films. And I think the films were in the 50s and maybe 60s or 40s already, which made it so popular to dance or to learn ballet dance around the world.
Yes, I also agree with this.
So I've felt the influence not of the cabaret, but the influence of the film was more harmful.
Yes, well, especially let's say the films that are made towards the 80s, yeah. Mm-hmm. And also a lot of theater productions belonging to the commercial section. But this is the era again of the, how you say, the open door economy under the regime of Sadat and yeah, and there everything is becoming so material, but again, it's the market. And we have to understand that the bodies of women are part of those markets. And if we want to deal with specific sensitive forms of cultural dances, we have to understand the market around them also.
Okay, we take the market on the one hand, and my second question should, or my, at least, let me ask, if we are talking about markets, who owns Raqs Sharqi? At least you said it was founded more or less by dancers from Roma tribes, and we are talking a lot at the moment about Roma and Sinti here in Europe as well. So do not they feel that somebody took their dancing from them and made it kind of Egyptian hype, or let's say worldwide, global hype? Yeah. What is the role of the Roma today?
But I think you should ask them, not me. For me,
maybe you have researched. Maybe you have asked them. Yes.
I have family connections to Egyptian Roma, but my understanding is that with hybrid forms, when you are stepping and transforming the dance, you are expanding the ownership. And it is, for me, like a very rich field of analysis and understanding how those forms that are labeled also as cultural dances with hybridity, they meet, they fuse and transform. And I feel here the question of ownership maybe cannot be answered from this perspective.
Yeah, it's a central word when you start commercializing. Yeah.
Yes. But I also feel that for each person who practices, or this is also my opinion as a practitioner, and also working with people who never danced before, I feel that each person is able to create their own dance. So also to transform what you learn while you are doing it. And then you create a kind of personal statement, signature, you can call it then personal ownership, but it is between your body and the dance. It's not like a stamp. Because also with dance, it's a live form, and you cannot make replica out of it. And this is what is so exciting about it, I feel. You cannot own it, unfortunately.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's fine. It gives hope. At least you said in the very beginning, you found Raqs Sharqi again when you were doing researches on trauma. what is the link between trauma therapy and Raqs ballet?
For me, well, it's a long story and I have tendency to talk too much.
No, okay. It's your show.
But I was many times working also with physical memory, with the physical memory of people who experience trauma in different levels and histories. And there is, of course, a long history of sexual harassment and violations in Egypt, one of the countries like on top of the list of sexual harassment in the world. And there is a lot of memories that are stored, let's say, in the pelvic area. And one of the techniques I try to use when exploring physical memory and trying to embody it and express it with dance and movement, and then finding out how this can be healing, how expression can be healing. I was doing a lot of shaking exercises and techniques. And of course, it brings directly one of the famous techniques of ballet dance with shaking the hips. And this image for me is very strong. It is related to like a crossroads of understanding trauma, sexuality, and also the expressive femininity that is shamed somehow. For me, the act of shaking is, on one hand, it so much triggers memories in the body and in the emotions, but it also can lead to shaking off. And I feel it is, on one hand, a statement, because it is so vibrant and so visible and strong that it becomes beyond the body. It becomes an energy. The shaking produces this energy, produces a lot of breathing and intensity, and therefore it creates a presence, not material presence, of the effect of trauma or the opposition of it. Now, when I go back to making the dance class with some ballet techniques and vocabulary, I try, this is what I'm also exploring since a year and a half. I'm trying to explore how this technique can reverse the feeling of celebration into a feeling of reconnecting to pain. And then if we start from that point, which is the root here, would be the root, how can this be throughout the practice, the repetition, and extending the time, how it can turn into a victory. This victory could be to reclaim our body, and with this reclaiming, we also somehow transformed the shamed memory, because it's also shamed. The trauma is shamed as well. We can transform it into a power. And I feel the most critical place to do this is with ballet dance or ballet dance, because is it already shamed? So,
yeah. May I ask you a very last question? The only group of humans which were really missing in your book, to my mind, were the male person. So there is, of course, also Raqs ballet made by men, like Alexander Polikovich in Beirut, for instance. So what do you think about dancing males?
yes. Of course, I tried to mention a few times, but I feel it needs a whole other essay. And it needs also a lot of, you know, examination about what masculinity means. And also in relation to dance in general and to this specific dance. But it's worthwhile to know that many of the iconic dancers in Egypt, like Tahaya Carioca and Samia Gamal, they had male choreographers and trainers. And it's an area here to understand that when you watch a performance by women, it's not necessarily totally made by the women alone. There are other people working towards that image. And I feel maybe that can be an entry point for me for a future examination of what is missing now in the book.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting because at least if you go from the healing aspect and of Raqs Sharqi, and you think of male dancing Raqs Sharqi as well, of course you feel this must be something like queer burlesque or something like that. But if you take this into consideration that also men try to overcome patriarchy, maybe by adopting such dances, I feel it's a kind of interesting turn as well.
Yes, and for this, it would be, for me, good not to say belly dance, but to say your own dance, whoever you are, wherever you are. And maybe to look at the feet as the beginning of the dance, where everything is initiated from the feet, from the roots, from the land, the ground, and into the body. And here is also one place where it goes beyond the gender, you know. And I feel it's a very interesting place to start.
Nora Amin, I thank you very much for this.